Hello, and in this first in a series of interviews with eco-entrepreneurs, I'm pleased to be joined today by Martin Chilcott, founder and CEO of 2 Degrees. Hello Martin, thank you for sparing the time today. You are what most people would call a serial entrepreneur. With that in mind, and before we talk about 2 Degrees, could you tell us a little bit about the other ventures that you've been involved in?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working for myself and setting up businesses almost from the point of view of leaving university. Not all of them successful, some pretty tough lessons on the way through which we might touch upon later. But we had initially a consultancy for high-tech consumer products. Did a lot of work with the Carphone Warehouse when they had one store and helped them grow into being the European market leader. We then switched that business in about 1993 to 94 into a internet business development consultancy called Clarity, which went on to do some fun things. It launched Abbey National's bank Kahoot, for instance, and a couple of other very interesting things. Sold that in April 2000 to a US NASDAQ listed company called Proxicon. We stayed with them for a year before they were in turn bought by a company called Dimension Data, which was at the time a FTSE 100 IT Cisco value-added reseller and integrator.
Okay.
And then I had a great time working for them as their group marketing director for a few years. They were based mainly out of South Africa, and I had just a fabulous time. It was a lifestyle. For me, it became a lifestyle job. And at some point, I started feeling I ought to get back to doing my own thing again. And I've always had a passion for education in the environment. So I set up with some colleagues an education business which transforms schools and outcomes for kids in schools in difficult, challenging circumstances. And that's called Place Group. It still runs today, a really great business. And then we set up a green business incubator here in Oxford.
Okay.
Associated and working closely with a couple of the university departments and the business school, called Meltwater Ventures. And out of that, we have launched 4 businesses. So Susenco, which is an energy services company. Community Central, which is a bit like 2 Degrees, which we'll talk about in a bit, but aimed at communities, geographical communities, consumer communities. A company called GoLo, as it was then, which we in fact divested ourselves from, but the management team went on to launch, which is called Carbon Voyager now, and happens to take me to. And then 2 Degrees, there we are, there's a fourth, so
Okay.
2 Degrees there.
Thank you. What would you say were the 3 biggest lessons you learned with your previous ventures?
Which is only 3. That's a tough one. Okay, well, there was one very early on. We had a very nasty experience, which I guess will never quite go away. Which is we were the victims of fraud from a very credible seeming, harmless seeming individual, and I think who very nearly brought down the business and kind of reduced us to bankruptcy.
Right.
So I think there's something about really getting to know the people that you're working with closely, and clearly we didn't do this on this occasion. And recognising that the people that you build around you in a team, therefore, are absolutely critical, and you are only as good as the team you build around you. And probably, I think it was Anita Roddick who said that the number one role of the entrepreneur is to set out a vision that brings other people with them, and that actually most of the really great stuff, the really making it happen, and the creativity and the things that make the business a success come from that wider team. And the entrepreneur's role is to try and bring that team together, I think. Okay. So that's kind of probably a couple of lessons rolled into one there. Another one is, I think, all about the fact that businesses, only my experience, the businesses I've run, have never done that kind of nice straight line growth that you put in your business plan. They've always been much flatter for much longer than we'd have hoped, and then they've taken off much sharper.
Okay.
And maybe that's always because I've been involved with businesses where we're trying to do something completely different with a new business model, trying to break the mold. And so therefore it takes time for us, to get the business plan and the business right. So yeah, I guess another lesson is your business plan is always wrong. As soon as you take it to market, you realise how wrong it is, and hopefully not too wrong. So you're spending your time learning how to make it right. And then your customers spending time getting to understand you and understand what you're offering because it's new. So it often takes, well, it always seems to take longer, and then it lifts off sharper.
Okay. 2 Degrees. Can you summarise what it is, please, and what it offers its members?
No, sure, of course. So 2 Degrees is a service for businesses and organisations, public and private sector organisations, and professionals who are in sustainable business. So they are part of this transition that we're going through in the economy, from high carbon, unsustainable economy to a low carbon, sustainable economy. And it's a service for them. And it's a service that is unique because it provides information access, connections, solutions, collaborative problem solving, all by harnessing the world's leading community of practice for those professionals. So 2 Degrees is now over 8,000 individual members from over 100 countries, organised and self-organised into what we call working groups. And these working groups focus on issues like carbon management or energy or the carbon reduction commitment and energy efficiency schemes, water, waste and so forth, all trying to understand and help the members of those groups gain insights into best practices, solutions that already exist, connecting up and making the market work. So that's what has happened, and off that community practice base we leverage a whole series of services. So we have what we call corporate insight services, which are designed to give digests and information and open innovation challenges on behalf of clients who've got a kind of footprint or a problem that they want to resolve. We have advisory services, which are strategy consulting, but with the difference that we draw upon the expertise and experience of the members in the community of practice to enhance the quality of the insights and accelerate the delivery of the consulting. And then lastly, implementation services, because we get to know very well the needs of our members as clients, and we get to know very well the offerings of our members as suppliers. And so very often we're in an ideal situation to help the two to come together.
What motivated you to start 2 Degrees?
Well, I've got a background from the internet, from Clarity, so I guess I was very familiar with the internet and what it could do. So there was a level which is just, I see technology as having transformative powers. So that's one level. The second part is to say that in setting up Meltwater, one of the things we realised was that we needed to create new ecosystems of organisations for the businesses we were incubating. And we had to try and find, where could you find the right financing partners? Where could you find the right technology partners, servicing partners and so forth, go-to-market partners? Because none of these people exist, because we are creating a new world and a new business economic order. And so we went out onto the internet to find the place that could provide this, and we couldn't find it. And then, having scratched our heads and cursing, suddenly a little light went on. We were a bit slow, I think, at first. Surely this was a great business opportunity, and something that really could accelerate the transition from a high carbon to a low carbon economy. If we can bring that market together, that market of people with needs and people with solutions, and we can bring information to those that need information, best practices shared quickly and easily through the internet, then we can accelerate, I think, dramatically this process. And just as an example of that, so we've got 8 cities at the moment participating in a pilot that is sponsored, if you like, by the World Bank Institute. So we're partnering with the World Bank Institute. And these are places like Chilcott and Dakar and Durban and Sao Paulo and Mexico City, Amman, Jerusalem, where they are sharing best practice with each other and kind of peer-to-peer witnessing and bringing in their solutions providers to share with each other around water and waste management and other kind of megacity issues, if you like. And it's that kind of facilitating, problem-solving, collaborative functionality that you can get from Web 2.0 internet that you just can't do in an analog world. You can't do it face-to-face, you can't get together, you can't travel the distances, you can't give up your day job to travel for 3 days to get to meet people. It's only possible to do that over the internet.
What's been your biggest challenge to date?
Well, 2 Degrees is new, so people are not used to working like this. So whilst we focus very much on compelling issues and challenges, content to bring people in, and they come in for that, about 500 qualified members come in by invitation or application every month. at the moment, and that's a growing figure. But once they come in, there's a challenge about making them, or helping them understand how they can use 2 degrees as a kind of, not quite a daily, but certainly a weekly tool to make it easier for them and quicker for them to get the information that they need, because feels so alien. So very often we get comments from members saying, I think it's a great idea, but I haven't got the time to use it. And so we're trying to organise the technology and the functionality and the services that our working group managers provide to make it not somewhere where you spend time, but somewhere where you save time. And so trying to get this technology and mould it in such a way it becomes really friendly for the user, and then trying to help people develop working habits so that it becomes at least a weekly point of call. So they think they've got a problem, they need to find a new source, a new supplier, or there's a piece of legislation coming up and they need to understand its implications. If we're covering that subject, 2 degrees will be the fastest way to get to not just a basic understanding of it, but an in-depth understanding from the point of view of other practitioners. But that's quite a complex habit to build. And so building that habit is really, really quite a challenge, I think, at times.
What's been the most rewarding experience so far?
Oh, there's been lots of them, actually. I think the most, I'll give it one of our working groups, because there are so many in that working group that it's worth focusing on that. So we've got a working group called Zero Waste. It's about 1,000 members in there. They're professionals from either companies who have waste issues to deal with, or they are companies that are providing solutions for waste, or there's some academics and there's some NGOs that are like Waste Watch and 1 or 2 other organisations in there as well. And we cast a lot of what we call open innovation challenges in there. So a really good one was with an airline who had to dispose of its seats for legal reasons every 3-4 months, and they're highly fire retardant because they're in an aeroplane, and they also get categorised at the end of this period as medical waste. So their options for reusing it, or turning it from waste into energy, for instance, through pyrolysis or something, was very limited. And so they asked us to help. We took that challenge, we posted it into the working group, we invited the experts that we knew on there around it, and then anybody else in the working group who wanted to participate into the forum for the discussion. And it took them 10 days to come up with a really credible solution, which was all about building plant near Heathrow, collaborating with other airlines, and then taking these foam seats and chopping them up into little beads where they become fabulous insulating material for the building industry, because they're highly fire retardant already. They're packed full of air, nothing else. They're easy to move and to load and all the rest of it. And so that particular case is being entered into awards, and the client is working out how they can make this a reality. So we get lots and lots of that. We've had a paints, inks, dyes, waste processing company needing more paints, inks, wastes and dyes, and we're able to bring household names like Jaguar Cars and B&Q and other people who've got lots of waste paint and inks and dyes to them and help them build out their kind of capacity and supply. Lots of these kinds of examples. And what it does is it accelerates. So what it does, it means that they get to the point where they are not just developing strategies, but they're solving problems and implementing sustainability strategies much faster. So we see this across all the groups in little bits here and there, and it's all pretty exciting. Yeah.
If you could do 1 or 2 things differently, what would they be?
Right at the beginning of 2 degrees, we contracted out to a third party for the building of the platform. And there aren't many, certainly back then, so this was just 3 years ago, so we've been live for 2 years. So 3 years ago, we wanted somebody to help us build this Web 2.0 collaboration platform that wasn't social media, in the sense it wasn't aimed at kind of families putting up photos, but was aimed at a business audience to solve problems collaboratively. And they just made a dog's breakfast of it, and it cost us a lot of money. In the end, we brought it in-house, we built our own technology team, we've got a great technology team now, but we've had to do a lot of reverse engineering and rescuing, and that costs us a lot of money. Sometimes we think technology can come off the shelf, or can, actually when you're doing something really innovative, you need to have, I think, quite close control of it. We didn't have as close control to begin with as we needed. Yeah, that cost.
Okay, thank you. Turning your thoughts to the future, what are your plans for the future of 2 degrees?
Oh well, so this year is our expansion outside of the UK. So we have members from 100 countries, but we don't have operating businesses really outside of the UK at the moment. So North America is by far our most important market, and 2010-2011 is the year in which we need to establish a community of practice in North America, which is world leading, which is providing a huge range and breadth and depth of shared expertise and collaboration for cities and for corporations in the US. So that's going to be our priority for this coming year. At the same time, we need to push further into Europe. But we're looking at a slightly different way of doing it. We're looking for partnering in Europe. So we're looking at setting up joint ventures and franchise license models in Germany and Scandinavia, France, Spain, and so forth. And then after that, we've got to look out further east, of course, because the big Asian economies growing very fast, going to need these services, need to make the transition to a sustainable economy as much as anybody else does. Perhaps bigger cultural, language, and other gaps. I'm not quite sure their markets are yet as attuned to sustainable business as perhaps as Europe is, but that will become very important from sort of late 2011, 2012 onwards.
Okay, thank you. And finally, apart from joining 2 Degrees, of course, what advice and guidance can you offer to somebody who's starting out with a new product or service that provides some sort of environmental benefit?
Right, so over and above kind of general advice for launching business, specifically for clean and green products and services, I think I'd emphasize the fact that you're necessarily supplying to an economic and business world that's in transition. And because it's in transition, you are breaking the mold in some way, or you're part of breaking the mold, and you're delivering something that's new and something that's very challenging. So you face many of the challenges that 2 Degrees face that I described earlier about, it takes longer to get yourself established, and then when it does take off, it takes off faster. So you don't get a nice straight curve, you get a hockey stick effect. I think that's very often the case. And to achieve the hockey stick, the takeoff point, you need to bring around your business partners which are not necessarily easy or commonly found today, because these are low carbon or sustainable partners that you're going to need of one sort or another. And of course, the vast majority of supply chains and go-to-market structures at the moment are, of course, high carbon and unsustainable. So finding those partners is tricky, but they're essential. And who you bring around you, who you collaborate with, I think is an absolute key to being successful.
Martin Chilcott, founder and CEO of 2 Degrees, thank you very much for your time.